All right, with our handsome Mr. Z, we're going to warm up a little bit with a couple just little find-its, get him in the groove. And then I wanted to do a little bit with some weights with recall. So for example, with the weight, unlike that stay, stay is going to be stay there until I come back and get you. So there is no recall from the stay. The wait, however, can be wait until I call you, or sometimes also wait until I release you to go grab like food or a retrieve an item or to grab something. So waits I like to apply to, for example, doorways, waiting before doing a hello, waiting before, for example, being fed, or something where you're working on that impulse control, sort of holding back until it's time to move forward. So with the wait behaviors, I like to go ahead and get my puppy's attention. So right now we were just warming up with some typical find-its. So I'm gonna tell my dog to wait, get him to hold it for a second, and then go, Zeus, come, and call him into my space. If in the beginning, remember, just like with our stays, you don't want to go, and I'm just doing some find-its to keep them busy. You don't want to go and do weights that involve a lot of distractions around the dog. You don't want to do the weights when your babe doesn't even know maybe what a weight might be, and you're anticipating that they're going to magically do well in brand new spaces if they haven't quite mastered or generalized some of those weight behaviors. Weight again, in the beginning, I like to work more with the time frame. So I might get this lovely sit, tell him to wait. If, let's say, this is as far as you can go in the beginning, perfectly fine. And then Zeus, come and bring him into your space. So he's coming and breaking for either being told to come to the spot in front of you. There's always something in that crack that he says seems delicious. And as they're coming to you, they're either working that lovely coming when called right in front of you, or again, going to grab something or some sort of item. So right now, let's say he's doing it down, you could actually apply your weight. Let's say you wanted to add a little bit of movement or some distance while he's waiting, just like with the other behaviors, you could start to include some of that distance, distractions, and duration. So right here, I might go, Zeus, come. Nice, good boy. And I do tend to reinforce my dogs for every time they do come when called. I want to make sure that since that's a really great one for safety, I will sometimes rotate through different varieties of food. So that way, sometimes there might be something really magical, and then other times it could be something not quite as potent. So that way they don't always know what is coming, but they're interested in doing that lovely check back in with you. So again, if your babe is having a rough time being stationary, working the weight, you could do a simpler version, which could be do a find it, get your puppy to move away, and then go, Zeus, come. And then practice that coming into your space from being distracted off somewhere else. So again, I'm sending him away again. Zeus, come. Nice. We do want to be careful when it comes to recalls that, again, I know we've mentioned this a little bit prior, is you don't want to pair recalls with the end of fun. So if he comes to you and they leash him up and you leave whatever you're doing, then calling him to you means the game is over. A lot of times too, recalls can equal something scary. So for example, you want to do tubby time, but he's nervous of maybe, let's say, for example, the tub. And then you call him to you and you go right to the tub. So the problem with pairing the recall with the scary is now he doesn't know when a recall is going to equal something bad or something good. So again, we could send him away with the find it, get him to go search, and then go again, Zeus, come. Yes, and feed him for that. So let's say he's doing really well with sort of the bouncing back and forth between the environment and the recall. Now you could start to apply your weight. So you could get a little sit. I could tell him to wait. And then he's like, oh my gosh, he's so winded, he might fall down. And then Zeus, come. Nice. So if your puppy, and of course it fell out of his mouth, but if your puppy's having a really hard time with weights and you find that it's easier to do a find it and then a bounce back to you, perfectly fine. So again, we get that lovely sit. If I know he's getting really tired, I might go ahead and ask for the down. Nice. And then again, sort of, I'm just going to give him a little chance. Give him, oh, dropped one. See, slippery hands. So let's say he's doing a down. I'm just going to feed him for that because that was really pretty. I'm going to now tell him to wait. So I typically, and if he breaks, don't worry. We're going to regain that position. He's like, lady, I'm just getting so tired. Down. Yes. Very nice. So if let's say he's getting a little excited, I'm just going to help, build up for that duration of just relaxing for a moment. So remember, sometimes feeding several snacks while they're doing a behavior builds value in that thing. So doing one rep and then sometimes they go and wiggle instantly, that's where feeding several snacks while they're doing the thing you'd like, the more that starts to equal, there's a bigger deposit into that bank account. So again, right now with Mr. Handsome, we're feeding several little goodies just to build up that lying down for a moment had a really good moment for him to be successful and view it as beneficial. So I'm going to tell him to wait. I'm going to take a few little steps away, see if he can handle just holding back while I'm just meandering. So just like earlier with that other position, we want to make sure that he is capable of rocking the steps in which we're trying. So from right here, I might go, Zeus, come. Yes. And then feed for that lovely response. Nice job. And I might do a couple just because the recall was so pretty. But if you're ever finding that you're doing several recalls and your puppy is starting to not be as exuberant for the checking back in, yes, nice job, then what might be going on is that the recalls are becoming more like boot camp and not so much fun and easy. Excuse me. So you do want to make sure that when you're practicing, it's still within your puppy's comfort range and that they're finding it appealing. Remember, training is better to do it short and sweet for greater success than to rock big chunks of time where either the puppy's getting fatigued or you're getting tired or frustrated. So make sure, chewing, little bits are better than big chunks. So right here we might go again and sort of he's like, oh, winded. I'm going to tell him to wait. And then I might add a little bit of movement. So while your babe is sometimes rocking a weight, this is where, again, they're just holding back as long as they can tolerate. So remember, both the weights and stays do work with time. So you could, for example, start to include a much longer duration for either of the behaviors. But I'd want to make sure that if any of them are hard, you want to keep the duration short. So right now, I'm actually adding quite a bit of duration and I'm adding some movement. And so there we go. So now he broke because maybe I took too long in the moment. So we might, again, regain the baby's attention, rock the down, and I'm going to feed him for that placement. We're holding feet. That's very nice. Excuse me. So he's going to, again, do that little wait. And now if let's say that was way too long, I don't want to make it so hard every time. So Zeus, come. So if you're finding he was breaking often, we're either doing it too quickly with too many big steps, so he's not sure what the whole process is in the first place, let alone making it more difficult. So I would bring it back to easy peasy. So he's like, lady, let's rumble. So if he goes to jump, don't worry, he was just trying to reach the snack halfway. He's just a bigger moose than he once was. So if he gets a little excited, we're going to see if we can get that sit. He's like, my brain melted. Right there, very nice, yes. If, again, we're getting a lot of jumping or mouthing, those are typically signals that your puppy is starting to get to the end of their abilities, either mentally or physically. So definitely he's going to go grab a drink of water because chewing and breathing is hard. So for your babes, when practicing, make sure that whatever they're working on seems attainable for both of you and that you're seeing progression. If you're seeing regression, that's normal. But if you're seeing that the babe is barely able to handle the situation, the environment, or the distractions, remember that exposing them to things where they're failing doesn't actually get them better at that setup, but maybe even creates negative associations with that environment or those things around them. So if going for a walk equals we haul to every new thing trying to get to it, and then we get frustrated when we don't get to visit, nice job checking in, sir, then what that can create is a dog that's going to have difficulty with big feelings and holding them in. So for example, we always tend to want to have neutrality in dogs. Neutrality to a certain extent is fine, but it's not like in the sense of suppression. So we don't want a dog that is so corrected and so overwhelmed that they're not even able to communicate how they're feeling and therefore they're more shut down. We still want a dog to be like able to notice the environment and sort of be able to communicate between you, them, and those things, but doesn't mean that physically they have to become in contact with those items. So if your babe from a far distance already has a harder time with new people or dogs or other animals or inanimate objects, remember, big open spaces are some of my favorite places to practice because then you can get as close or as far to those distractions as needed to keep your puppy under threshold and the learning experience beneficial and not a flooding situation. Because remember, when flooding is occurring, your dog is not learning how to cope. They're learning how to feel overwhelmed in that setup. And also, those associations might turn into negative associations. Because with flooding, we tend to be overwhelming the dog and their nervous system with the setup. So remember, whenever you're practicing, oh, chew them, sir, is whenever you're practicing anything with your puppy or dog, is that they should look comfortable and under threshold for either over arousal or feelings of safety while they're practicing. So, but Mr. Z is doing a really nice job with his skills and becoming a very nice, lovely little gentleman to work with. I know at times it can be a little frustrating at home because a lot of times where they might be more comfortable, they give you even more behavior than maybe even here. So if there are things that are still being what you would consider problematic, or he's getting a little bit more difficult to deal with for certain things, you can always check in to make sure that what we're doing around the puppy is helping the situation and not creating more either confusion and therefore then more difficulty. So, but Mr. Z did a beautiful job with his stays and his weights today. So we'll give him, he's like, ooh, we'll give him a little breather, and then we'll continue working with him in a little bit. Nice job, sir. Such a smart man.